Chapter 40. I don't want to come in and visit. I just want to get my girls and go, insisted Katarina. Caelum and Terra traded mortified looks. Katarina marched into the kitchen, edgy and frantic, Arlette right behind her. Caelum, Terra, get your things. Come on, we have to go. Katarina pushed. Arlette tried to calm her. Katarina, we're happy to take the girls trick-or-treating tonight. Katarina shook her head violently. No way. We have to go. Now. Girls, come on. But Terra began to protest. Don't you start with me. Now, girls. Katarina bellowed. She was getting wild-eyed. It was time to go. Caelum and Terra turned back to Belle and Hutch, who watched with silent, nervous sympathy as the sisters gathered their props and slumped toward Katarina. Katarina gripped them by the shoulders, white-knuckled, and steered them out the door. Dark clouds blew in as Katarina dragged the girls toward the gray house. Caelum looked back at Belle's house, at Belle and Hutch standing on the white picket fence porch, forlornly watching them go. Terra jerked to a halt. Wait, I forgot my compass. We have to go back. You won't be needing that, replied Katarina ominously. But why? What's happening? Demanded Terra. You'll never escape it if I tell you. Katarina's eyes went distant and haunted. Escape what? Asked Caelum. Katarina didn't answer. Muttering and shaking her head, she dragged the girls toward Gardenia's truck. Caelum, heart racing, looked up at Terra with those big, wide baby sister eyes and pleaded for her to understand. This was it. Whatever she'd been seeing, it was almost here. Katarina threw open the driver's side door and shoved the girls inside. The truck was strewn with rotting cigarette butts and toad-well-crusted cups. A film of brew reeked up from the floorboards and made Caelum want to puke. The screwdriver still sat in the ignition, but now exposed wires hung out under the steering wheel with which to hotwire the thing to life. Katarina connected the wires with shaking hands. Again and again, sparks flew, but the engine wouldn't turn over. Come on, start! Start, damn it! Shouted Katarina. Spark, fizzle, spark, nothing. The turn of the screwdriver, the futile whine of the motor, still nothing. Katarina laid her head on the wheel, weeping with raw animal desperation. Caelum and Terra watched her, stock still, afraid to make the slightest sound. Finally, Katarina raised her head, her determination renewed. I still have to get you girls out of here. She threw the truck door open and dragged the girls back out into the road. Katarina ran with Caelum and Terra in tow back to Belle's house. Belle and Hutch watched from inside but did not dare come out. Arlette stepped out onto the porch, wiping her hands clean on her apron. Hey, Arlette, hey, Katarina yelled out. Arlette tried to speak soothingly. Katarina, why don't you come inside and we'll all... Katarina didn't seem to hear her. Arlette, you have to lend me a car. Any old junker, please, I promise. We'll bring it back, but right now we have to get away. Arlette looked around at the cars in her yard. She looked back at the girls. She studied Katarina. Caelum could almost hear Arlette thinking, this woman? Skinny as a whipping switch, skin all the colors of a fading bruise, sweating and sick. This woman who has never once gotten out of bed to take those kids to school, who never seems able to cook them dinner, even help them pack a lunchbox. Now she wants to protect them, and she needs my car to do it? Something ain't right here. Katarina, honey, I'm sorry, but I can't do that, Arlette replied firmly. Katarina swayed from right to left, staring at Arlette in desperation, searching for a chink in her resolve. Cicadas roared louder and the late afternoon heat swelled intolerably. Silence, nausea, sweat, trembling, watchful eyes, but none who knew what to do. Katarina gave up. She dragged the girls back out into the middle of the dirt road. Katarina looked up at the sky, arguing now with something unseen. Why? Why are you doing this? Please, why are you doing this? Caelum flashed to the vision of Katarina in restraints. Maybe Caelum was the only one who really understood Katarina. Maybe she was the only one who could save her. What had Grandma Eva said she had to do? Thunder rumbled overhead. Are you talking to God? Asked Terra. Is this because the magic is coming? Asked Caelum. Stop asking me questions, damn it. I can't tell you. Katarina shouted back. Why can't you tell us? Terra pushed. Katarina fought back panicky tears as the girls waited for any explanation at all. I just can't. That's why. Terra persisted, as though locating logic could slow the dangerous turn of gears that dragged them onward. Why do we have to go? What do we have to get away from? Katarina sensed an eruption growing ever closer. The wings that invaded her vision now had arms and hands, jaws and teeth, gristle and stubble. Breath that reeked of death. Closer, closer. God damn it, you're making me do this! Katarina grabbed the girls by their skinny arms again and dragged them to the back of the gray house. She was headed straight for the toad well. Chapter 41. Caelum and Terra scanned the yard for Gardenia or anyone who could help them, but there wasn't a soul in sight. And so, not a soul in the world to get in the way of Katarina as she dragged them all the way to the edge of the well, till the three of them were ankle-deep in that rancid ring of mud right at the well's mouth. She knelt, yanked them close, and looked each of her daughters in the face, grim and annihilating. I didn't want to tell you girls this, because once I tell you, there's no more escaping it. You hear? You'll never get away once you know. Katarina searched Caelum and Terra's faces for signs of comprehension. They are coming. No one can escape. Katarina pushed their hair behind their ears with ragged tenderness. They'll descend right from the sky with such a force, and there's nothing anyone can do. You can try to resist, but they'll always be stronger. Katarina grimaced and wept. They'll come in the night while you're sleeping. She held the girls' faces together in both of her hands. Take away your will and eat you whole. Nothing left, you precious little girls. Be destroyed. Katarina reeled. She stared at her daughters with a desolation so abject and with a wolfish love. Caelum was lit up like an electric fence by the ferocity with which Katarina needed to protect her babies from this unseen devouring force. An obsessional gravity tugged at Caelum. It yanked on her from the very center of herself, warping the weft of the world toward Katarina. Isn't there something we can do about it? Caelum sobbed. Yes, there is one thing. Katarina choked on her words like they were spoiled prey. There's no way to stop them from eating you, but if you drink it, when they eat you, they'll die too. Caelum and Terra stole horrified glances. And then it'll be like you're not even there. You see, like nothing ever happened, so it'll be okay. Katarina rambled, quaking and teary. This is the only way to make it stop. The only thing that kills him is drinking the brew from the well. For Caelum, time slowed as she tried to imagine a way, any way, that she could do what Katarina needed her to do. But inside Terra, no. Something unwavering appeared, and it stood up to be heard. I'm going for help. Katarina tightened her grip on both girls, hissing, There is no help. Terra struggled free. She tried to drag Caelum with her, but Katarina's grip was too tight. Caelum, don't do anything she tells you. I'm going to get help. I'll be right back. Terra lit out across the yard. Katarina shrieked, Terra, get back here. It's not safe. She moved to chase after, but Terra was already out of sight. A heavy rain started to fall. Katarina turned back to Caelum, a feral, hollow need rattling her every movement. She grabbed Caelum's face in both of her hands. You believe me, don't you, baby? Smoothing the scowl from Caelum's eyebrows, Katarina stared into Caelum's eyes and held her there, searching. Katarina had never once looked at Caelum so deeply in all her life. Katarina's eyes pleaded with Caelum to see her and to understand her, to know her. Caelum peered into the dark oceanic center of Katarina's stare and found a stillness that went on forever. In the silence between them, as they held each other's gaze, a door unlatched. Right there and then, Caelum was let back into a home she didn't even know she'd been exiled from. Here, in Katarina's searching, pleading tenderness, was the connection that unnameable loneliness inside Caelum had been seeking all this time. Caelum held on to it like a lifeline. Katarina grabbed Caelum and hugged her tight, tighter still, now too tight. So tight she shuddered and shoved with it. So tight she gritted her teeth, and with a horrible heave, Katarina forced Caelum down into the well. As the betraying earth gave way under Caelum's feet, she was devoured by the realization of what Katarina had meant. Caelum clawed at the sides of the well. She cried out in useless protest. As the rain poured down, that slick bastard betraying mud grew far too slippery, and Katarina too determined. Now Katarina used her hands to shovel sticks and mud onto Caelum, covering her over inside the well. "Wait! Stop! You're suffocating me!" Caelum struggled to shove the branches away, but Katarina was fast. "Don't! You'll kill me!" Caelum coughed. "If I don't, they will." Katarina pointed at the sky, her face terrifying with rage. She went on, burying her daughter, hiding her away by sealing over the mouth of the well. Rain came down in torrents. Water gushed into the well. Inside that dark chamber, mud raining down on her, Caelum screamed, "Help!" Chapter 42. Terra barged into Belle's house without knocking. "Somebody help us!" Soaked to the skin, she dripped water all over Arlette's clean carpet. A loud cacophony of voices erupted as Terra tried to explain. Arlette's voice broke through. No. This is way more than we know how to handle. You gotta call help." Arlette urged the phone into Terra's hands. Hutch and Belle stood right by Terra, silently championing her on. Terra stared hard at the receiver. All of Katarina's hellfire demands to never ever call for help pushed against her till her hands shook. But it was Katarina that they needed to be protected from. She picked up the phone and dialed. 911, what's your emergency?" came the voice of an operator. Startled by the stranger's voice on the other end, Terra flinched and moved to hang up the phone, but managed to keep it in her grasp. She took a long breath, locked eyes with Hutch, and became able to find the words. It's my mom. She's dangerous, and she's gonna hurt us. Please, we need help." Chapter 43. Inside the dark well, Caelum fought against a mudslide. She wobbled, gaining half a foothold only to lose it again. She managed to scramble up just enough to touch the branches that Katarina had covered over the well with by the tippy tops of her fingers, but lost her footing and got sucked a whole heap further down. Little Popsicle Stick wrestled to wipe the mud out of her eyes and mouth with hands that were twice as dirty, and it sure did seem like that toxic sludge might be making her woozy. All around her, sinister toads pulled at Caelum's feet, prying off her shoes, unraveling her sibyl robes. The way ahead looked about twice as scary as the way she came in, but still her body wouldn't obey her a lick, and she scrambled along on hands and knees, delivering herself further and further into the well, narrower and narrower. Now she needed to escape the toads and get above the rising water, but the wooziness turned her into an inchworm, slow and sluggish. Caelum Inchworm struggled to keep her mouth up where the air might be, to keep her eyes open, while she slippery inched her way down that long, long dark, collapsing and picking herself up again, weeping, "No, I can't." Out of the walls of the tunnel, ever more arms of toads and still more roots of trees grasped at her. Skulls and bone shards emerged from the compacted earth, scratching at her skin, snagging on her clothes. The mud itself undulated into ghoulishness, crying out with the mouths of the dead. "Please, Mom, why? Make it stop." Caelum nodded out of consciousness. The water rose around her. And now she is not alone. A whispering hiss arises from within like a geyser, full throttle, fast and dangerous. Caelum's words are a garble in her mouth. Her voice becomes many voices. A crowd roars from within her. "Stop, stop, make it stop." Who is she now? An electrocution? A free fall? A crowd of 1,000 faces? A riot? People fight. Fires burn. Objects are smashed and broken. Ancestors from Eva's quilt shimmer in the devouring crowd. A winged man looms over a prostrate form, disemboweling the body with his hawk-like beak as screams ring out, "Stop!" Caelum can feel all of the strife playing out inside her own body. All pain is one pain, and all of it is hers now. Make it stop! The water rises and engulfs her. Caelum sinks into a fetal position, amniotic, floating. Inside the electric current that Caelum is, Great-Grandma Eva fights through. A shadowy figure lunges. Eva pushes him, smashes a plate. He raises a fist. She cowers, covers her head, and screams, "Stop!" Shockwaves clench Caelum's being and shudder ever outward. A small girl watches this violent scene, paralyzed with fright. In a pulsing instant, the girl grows up to become Grandma Althea, dismal and suffering. Lethargy and toad brew, cigarette butts and razor blades. Althea puts a pillow over her head. Just make this stop. The forces that grind her down drag Caelum ever deeper. Althea's two daughters, little Jeannie and teenage Katarina, hover just beyond their mother. Left to navigate a barren landscape on their own, wind whips at their hair, tatters their clothes. Stumbling, running, a lost stray dog howl rips through Caelum's soul. Jeannie grows into a teenager. The juddering winged, hawk-toothed man appears, chases, captures her. As Jeannie struggles to get away, her head splits, hydra-like, into Franklin and Sybil and the preacher, all of them screaming together as one, and Caelum screaming too, "Please stop!" And then there's Katie, beautiful as a reprieve, sweet as a breath of air taken underwater. She bounds toward Caelum, smiling radiantly. Katie takes Caelum's hand and pulls her toward something familiar that Caelum can just barely make out. The toad well. Katarina is there too, at the side of the well. The shadow of the hawk-winged man looms behind her. Katarina shudders in disgust. She holds a cup of toad brew in unsteady hands. Letting go of Caelum, Katie runs to Katarina and steps inside of her like a ghost. Katie's small hands and sweet, hopeful face continue to beckon Caelum closer. In a sing-song kind of unison, Katarina and Katie hold the cup out toward Caelum. Now they speak in overlapping voice. This is the only way I know how to make it go away, go away. The shadow of the hawk-taloned man comes in closer until the three merge, pulse together, beating of wings. Hands, claws shove the cup at Caelum. Teeth, eyes gnash, deform into shapes most monstrous. Vile seraphim talking backwards, mangle of voices. Now the hawk-throated man, now Katarina, now Katie, snarling as one. Don't you, will you, kill you, have to. Shut up if you, my fault, never, she, tell. The cup is shoved hard over Caelum's mouth and nose. All gives way to dark and sick. Caelum becomes gagging, becomes retching and no escape. The noxious bile forced down her throat tastes like shame, smell of death, rot room, buried and hidden. Caelum, tiny as a pebble under a shoe, gags for mercy. But she wants to believe her mommy. Itsy-bitsy girl, quiet girl, wants so bad to do what mommy says. Good girl with the monster. Good girl, drink the well. But there's another force, a pushing back from deep within the body, unbidden, a rage as old as time, a reflex to climb, to fight, to breathe, to live. Caelum's hands strike out, wild as dogs. They shove the Katarina Katie Hawkman monster back in an explosion of light and wings. Caelum's own clear voice rings out now. No! You're not him! I'm not you! Chapter 44. Can I tell you something? It's hard to believe what happened next, and I've already asked you to believe a lot I know, but this part is true too, cross my heart. And somehow it's the strangest part. So there we were, me and my mama. We were like a moment torn clean out of time. I'm down in that well still, but I'm all grown up. And I'm holding my mother right there in my arms. She's old and she's sick and she's dying, and we both know it. As I look into her face, it all comes back to me. All the awful shit she put us through. How being raised by her was torture sometimes. How she lost her mind and almost killed us. how she never should have had us babies in the first place, but for some reason she did. And then I could feel it right in my bones, everything that she'd been through that had brought her to this point. I knew that the pain she'd handed to us was just the pain she carried around like a cup too full not to overflow on everything around her. I felt how it had tortured her, hounded her down like a flock of malevolent wings closing in at the edges of her existence, forcing her towards some dark center that she couldn't bear to suffer again, and yet neither could she escape. And in that knowing, I was free. I couldn't hate her anymore. Instead, I loved her. Love as a kind of weightless, timeless place, a single moment that exists forever, a force nothing can change. It all went white right then, and I woke up again, falling upward like a dream within a dream. There was nothing at all, only light, and then who should I hear but my old friends? Still wiping away tears, I looked around in all that brightness for the source of the voices, and there they were, a sight for sore eyes. Ellie laughed, all giddy. "She's here!" And Rasp called out, "She did it!" With so much joy and mischief, I could cry right now just thinking about it. And they were the same. They hadn't aged a day. God, it was good to see them. "What did I do?" I asked. Rasp laughed that big belly laugh of his. "I don't know, girl. You tell me." Well, how could I explain? I felt it all, and I loved her anyway. Ellie smiled. "Aha, forgiveness magic. Makes sense to me." "Forgiveness magic?" I asked. And Rasp says, "Yup, that'll do it. You can pretty much always jumpstart a busted line that way," he said, grinning, proud. All different kinds of magic, of course, but the one true ace in the center of all of them, the white light from which all the other hues prism outward, is just that one, unconditional love, the only infinite zero in the whole game. And right then, Rasp pointed, and I realized I was holding something like a snowflake star, like a ball of incandescent brightness, all ringed in crystals and shimmers of every color imaginable, so comforting and warm. "So what do I do with it?" I wanted to know. "Well, you're going to do everything with it," says Ellie. "Everything you do now will have this in it." Gosh, it was good to see her face again. "Now keep it safe, hun," she says, and she folds my hand right in toward my heart, and that white light just went in and lit up my whole chest, and when it did, Ellie and Rasp disappeared again. I was alone inside all that big glowing light, but still I could hear Rasp's voice, almost like he was speaking from within me or something, and he says, "Now isn't there someone who needs you?" And I thought about little me, poor thing, half drowned at the bottom of that well, and all I could think was, but how? I'm grown now. Can I go back and give this to her? "Yes," says Ellie. "Yes, you can." Chapter 45. Caelum was balled up like a tiny ready fist, unconscious, unbreathing, down inside the watery well. The earth shook around her. Something was pounding the ground above where she was entombed. In the middle of her slumped, still chest, a light appeared, at first halting and firefly tiny, a signal sent out into a night that had descended much too early. Greenly it wriggled and squirmed and searched for a place to rest, finding none. Pinkly it glowed and balmed, sending soothing waves out over a halted ribcage. Yellow and sweet, bright white and stubborn, and then came rhythm, hot, violent red. Did it beat like a heart, breathe like a lung, pound through her like an earthquake which refuses to allow the land to rest? Shooting upward in a violent spasm, Caelum came to. Her mouth and nose found a small pocket of air that had opened up just above her head in a bit of space shaken loose by the pounding of the ground above. Gasping and coughing, vomiting up water, Caelum found breath. Ragged and small, but it was enough. She clung desperately to hanging tree roots, holding her face inside that pocket of air, holding on steady to life. And then anger. The little girl who had wanted only to please her mother had been given something new, and it roared in her like an engine. No, no, Mom, this is not right. The pocket of air above her grew, and Caelum pulled herself along, talking to Katarina as she struggled. It's not safer down here. Topside, Terra, Hutch, and Belle had ignored the grown-ups' orders to stay away from Katarina and wait for the police to handle it. Busting out of the house back ways, they combed the yard calling out for Caelum, who was nowhere to be seen. Mom! Mom! Terra stared at Katarina, who sat on top of the pile of logs and mud she'd used to cover over the mouth of the well. What did you do? Terra shrieked, but Katarina was now in full communion with the toxic angel of her nightmares. She babbled and stuttered and clawed at her own skin. She pulled at her hair, eyes fixed to the sky, unseeing, unhearing. She burrowed into the mud, covering herself in filth, trying to hide. Terra turned back to Hutch and Belle. I think Caelum is in the well. They stared at one another in panic. Katarina radiated a terrifying force field no one could bring themselves to tangle with, and Caelum could be anywhere underground at this point. No one knew how far that well went. The girls huddled to make a plan, then fanned out into action fast as a backyard SWAT team. They would use Rasp and Ellie's headphones to locate Caelum and then dig a new hole through the soft ground directly to her, wherever she was. Hutch ran to get Chestnut. Belle hauled shovels and buckets from the clank shed. Terra searched the ground with the stethoscope, listening for sounds from Caelum. Hutch raced back on Chestnut, who reared and stamped like an animal possessed. His hooves pounded the soft earth till the whole of Tarnation shook, and Terra worried the ground would cave in under his feet. And then he stopped, just as suddenly as he'd started. With the stethoscope pressed to the mud, Terra waited for a sign. Come on, work. They always worked before. She pleaded, cursing Rasp and Ellie for leaving, pleading for them in some small way to return. Terra motioned for silence. Underground, Caelum was in a narrow crevice just above a river of muddy rainwater that flowed through one of the well's tunnels, breathing in a pocket of air opened up by the thunder of Chestnut's hooves. She turned her head and screamed down through the water, Help! I hear something. Start digging, Terra ordered. The ground was soft and the work was quick. Soon, Caelum saw a shaft of light appear at the end of the watery tunnel. She bellowed down through the water again, unsure how long the tunnel went on or if she should risk trying to swim it. Terra threw off the headset and reached down into the well, shoulder deep, feeling around frantically for Caelum and hitting water. No, it's full of water. She'll drown. I have to go down there. Belle protested. What? That mud's poisonous. You'll both drown. Belle started to cry, tears of panic, and grabbed at Terra's arms. I don't care. I'm going. Terra choked, yanking her arms away. Hyperventilation heaved her chest. Terra looked to Hutch, who stared back at her resolute, giving a single, confident nod as she began lassoing some rope around Chestnut to assist in the rescue. Terra fastened a rope harness around her waist. Lower me down and don't pull me back up until you feel 3 tugs. Assisted by Hutch and Belle on her descent, Terra steadied, took a deep breath, plunged her head below the rancid water, and swam down into the well's murky passages. Instantly she got woozy. Nausea slowed her movements, and a hopeless pull toward sleep descended, clouding her vision. A voice from inside, some frayed doubt ever before buried under the surface of her mind, lit up on contact with the toxic toad well. You will always be down here in this dark, dirty place, failing again and again. You couldn't save Katarina, and you won't save little sister either. Shame you. Rest now. Just sleep. Terra's eyes drifted shut, her movements stilled. Chapter 46. A shriek from Caelum vibrated the water and jolted Terra awake. With it, a compass needle of awareness came to life and trembled inside Terra's chest. Abiding its pull, Terra found that she did know. She knew precisely what to do. This can't be that hard. This can be done. Suddenly sure as if she'd been navigating underwater tunnels for eons, Terra reached up and pulled herself along exposed roots at the top of the passageway toward the pocket of air that held her little popsicle stick. Bursting up through the space where Caelum was hiding, Terra clung to her sister, pulling in huge gasps of air. Shaking, they held on to each other like the very last salvation. Steadying herself, Terra locked eyes with Caelum. She took slow, powerful breaths, and Caelum followed. Sinking their breath, stalling tears, staying steady, Terra hooked one of Caelum's hands around her neck and one on the rope at her waist. She slung an arm around Caelum in a tight, tight hug. Good kind of tight. Best kind. Wordlessly, Terra reached back to the rope trailing behind her and tugged 3 times. On the surface, Hutch and Belle shouted, "Pull!" Hutch had fixed a makeshift work harness around Chestnut and fastened it to Terra's rope. Hutch, Belle, and Chestnut all together pulled and heaved and pulled some more. Hooves stomped. Gusts of wind, feathery and powerful like wing beats, gave lift to their collective urgency. Underground, curled tight around each other and the rope, Caelum and Terra held their breath and were jerked once, twice, 3 times through the mud like the contractions of a birth canal. They shot to the surface, to the shock of daylight and air, and the shouts of Hutch and Belle. In the over-dazzling bright of the surface world, Chestnut gleamed, white as Pegasus. 2 huge wings beat from his sides, bringing his hooves softly back down to the ground. Terra and Caelum stared, dazed and transfixed, as he folded his powerful wings, as those wings disappeared into his sides, and as the ruddy brown of Chestnut's color returned to his fur. Hutch and Belle, never even having looked back to see this transition, smiled down at Caelum and Terra. "Yeah!" whooped Hutch. "We got you!" Belle, beatific in her sparkling nurse's outfit, produced a bucket of water and a stack of towels and gently helped Caelum and Terra clean off the toxic mud. Hutch walked Chestnut back to his hitching post, slapping his neck proudly, praising his bravery, and promising him a lifetime supply of carrots and a box of donuts, too. Chapter 47. But Katarina still held her ground at the mouth of the well. Rising up onto her knees in the mud, she stretched both arms skyward and prayed to the wide heaven above her. Blue and red flashing lights exploded off of every surface she could see. "They're here! They're gonna get all of us!" Katarina screeched. Caelum sat up, still half expecting to see the sky ripped open and monsters descending. Instead, she saw only clouds in an uneasy sky. "Caelum, look!" Terra scanned the yard as a police car and an ambulance rumbled closer, now filling the whole of the backyard with a staccato flash of red and blue light. Caelum shuddered. It was those lights! A police officer and 2 medics jumped out of the vehicles and beelined for Arlette, who had only to nod in the direction of Katarina. "Good God," sighed one of the medics, taking in the scene. The 2 of them ran to gather their equipment. The officer paused to steel himself, then strode with a military kind of ardor toward Katarina. In a single swoop, he grabbed her up into a bear hug, pinning her arms tight to her body. She resisted something ferocious, kicking and screaming like that time old Ten caught a cat in his jaws and the itty-bitty thing just about killed him getting away. But Katarina didn't get away. The medics hauled over a gurney, and the 3 of them strapped Katarina down to the flimsy metal bed under a set of 2 tight restraints. Caelum tried to stand, still delirious, pleading, "No, it's them, tying her up like I saw. I was gonna save her." Terra held Caelum back from chasing after them. Mama Addie and Arlette rushed toward the girls. "They're taking her," Caelum whimpered helplessly. Arlette reached out a hand in comfort. "Hey now, it's okay, sweetie. Terra had to call the ambulance. Your mom wasn't okay. It wasn't going to be safe for you girls to be left alone with her like that. She's got to go to the hospital for a while," and Caelum went limp. She'd stopped listening. Still restrained by Terra, she stared out across the yard. There were other neighbors congregating, adults she didn't recognize. Jimmy Bob Little and his gang, all in their Halloween costumes, all standing in the street, staring at the scene. Caelum shivered, wet and cold and lost. Chapter 48. Caelum and Terra were all tucked into the guest bed at Belle's house, wearing a couple of pairs of Belle's old pajamas, their hair glossy clean. Caelum had her 2 big sleeves rolled up into floopy puffs at the elbows so she could work on drawing a new set of paper dolls. This one, she and Terra as mermaids, colored in extra nice, holding onto a rope and swimming up to the surface of a mysterious lagoon. Arlette and Mama Addie came in carrying a lava lamp to add to an array of night lights plugged into the walls. All right, girls, here's one more nightlight. Arlette put it on the nightstand and plugged it in. The wiggling blobs of colored oil reminded Caelum of the sorceress and her steam. I wonder if you could use that lamp to tell fortunes by, Caelum mused aloud. Mama Addie laughed. Kid, you never quit. Arlette turned the overhead lights off and blew the girls a kiss. Get some sleep, you two. You've had too long a day already. Arlette and Addie padded out softly and closed the door behind them. Caelum tucked her paper dolls and crayons into the nightstand and nestled her head onto Terra's lap. Terra stroked her hair. They spoke slowly and in whispers. Cael, what was it like down there? All that disgusting mud. I thought I'd drown. I'm so sorry. I never wanted that to happen to you. How did you survive underwater before I came for you? I don't know. I remember I couldn't fight anymore, and then I could breathe. Light. Light? Yeah, and anyway, it's not really a curse that came with the gifts she gave us. Just hurt. Terra chewed her lip and sighed heavily. Do you think we should have told them what she did? Caelum shook her head for sure no. She was awful proud of her sister for getting help, and yet the habit of protecting Katarina, the need to protect her really, hoping she could, via their salvation, turn around and finally be a mother, it was so strong neither of them could really just up and let that go. Terra stroked Caelum's hair gently and wondered if they were still kids after today. Caelum stared up at the glittery flecks sparkling in the popcorn ceiling overhead. She closed her eyes. It was awful strange because, in one recollection, every minute was a terror, and she knew that was the truth. Frozen stiff in a lost kind of place. No voice, no thought, impossible to even exist at all. But then there was that light. It was like a gift delivered backward in time, bringing with it a new kind of story. Unfrozen, unlost. It picked up the sticks and rebuilt the house that the big bad wolf mama had blown down. Built it stronger, so Caelum could sit cozy inside it and just be a while. Terra scooped Caelum into a big bear hug and squeezed her tight. I never would have let you die down there. Chapter 49. Belle cracked the door and popped her head in. Psst! Caelum and Terra sat up. Belle and Hutch, also in pajamas, snuck in hauling 2 liters of soda and a pillowcase full of Halloween candy and climbed into the bed. Hutch cracked open one of the sodas with a hiss and had to let the overflow go into a potted plant as Belle dumped the entire pillowcase out onto the bed, announcing, Candy! Oh, what? You guys are the best, said Terra, running her hands through the pile just to enjoy the crinkly sounds of so many candy wrappers. Caelum immediately emptied most of a box of Pop Rocks into her mouth, grinning with her tongue half out while the little buggers popped and exploded. Don't put no soda in there or you'll explode too, Belle warned, which set off peals of hysterical giggles. Hutch tussled Caelum's clean hair. You guys okay? Caelum nodded, still chomping on Pop Rocks. Yeah, I guess. Thanks to you guys. I'm kind of scared to go back home, though, with all the gray hair and the wells still back there. Hutch nodded sympathetically and then sat straight up, hands on hips. Maybe there's something the Federation can do about that. She broke into a smile that contained more than its usual hint of mischief. I mean, the veil is thin tonight. Caelum perked up. Oh, we could do a spell in the cauldron. Yeah, this felt right to Terra, too. All right, then. What kind of spell? Maybe, if you have to put all kind of grody stuff into the toad well to get a bad potion, we should put the opposite stuff in, like to make us strong, Caelum offered. Yeah, let's all bring something that made us feel powerful today, or any time that was hard, said Hutch. Belle interrupted. Okay, but we need a cooler name. Caelum knew instantly. How about the Sibylant Sisters? Yes, awesome, came the rowdy consensus. Caelum broke into a rhythmic clap and sang along with herself. Sibylant Sisters, Silent Snake Magic. The others joined in, shouting overlapping refrains. Sibylant Sisters, Inner Vision Magic. Sibylant Sisters, Pegasus Power Magic. Sibylant Sisters. Their incantation dissolved into rambunctious giggles. Chapter 50. Outside in the yard, the sky was dark and the neighborhood quiet, save for the squawking of tree frogs, bright chirping of crickets, and the occasional distant baying of one of the neighbor's dogs. Caelum, Terra, Hutch, and Belle were circled up around the enormous dye cauldron from the clank shed. They'd managed to heave ho and rig up the big pot over top a fire built out of yard scrap and shed kindling, and now it sat steaming lightly as the water inside it began to simmer. That big job done, the girls jostled each other and giggled with some embarrassment before settling in and adopting a solemnity that might suit a federation of spellcasters on the full moon of a Halloween night. Belle got 'em started. She held out the bejeweled fire ant pendant she'd won in that bully bet. Caleb gasped to see it again. It sure was pretty. Dangling it ceremoniously over the cauldron, Belle raised her chin high and spoke. "Those boys bet me I couldn't stand in the fire ant hill because everyone thinks I'm nothing more than pretty." She pursed her lips. "But go ahead, tell me my bling don't bite." Terra and Caleb clapped and hooted in agreement. "We know that's right," cheered Hutch. Belle dropped the pendant into the cauldron. Steam rose. Next, Hutch held up a lock of hair from Chestnut's mane. "When my parents were getting divorced, my dad was being loud and scary all the time. But when I'm on Chestnut, I'm fast and strong and twice as tall as him, too. I'd ride up and think, 'Go ahead, Dad, try me now.' That's how I knew we could get y'all out of that well together." Hutch tossed the lock of coarse hair into the cauldron with a defiant swagger. The water hissed as the lock of mane sank beneath the surface. Terra held out her compass by its chain. The brass instrument swung back and forth, catching the light of the fire as she spoke. "Rasp and Ellie gave me this compass. It works because it's being pulled by forces deep underground. When I went in after Caelum, all of a sudden, I knew I wasn't going to drown. It was like there was a magnet down there in the earth, and it pulled me the right way, too." The three nodded with admiration. None could imagine doing what Terra had done, risking what she had risked. Terra hesitated, peering at the instrument's face, watching the needle spin, finally closing her eyes and letting her beloved compass go into the steaming concoction. Caleb smiled nervously and held out her gardenia. "When the gray air felt like it was going to suffocate me, the smell of this gardenia gave me one good place to be, some place where I could dream of something different than here." She passed the flower around the circle so that each could inhale the sweet scent of the miraculous little bud. When it came back to her, she inhaled deeply one last time, imagining all of its generous visionary power infusing itself into their collective spell. Caleb gently submerged the gardenia into the cauldron's waters. With all the girls' offerings in, a wee little sparkling puff of prismatic rainbow-colored cloud emerged from the rising steam. "Whoa!" The four looked at each other in excitement and surprise. Something was definitely happening. Shy at first, another luminous rainbow cloud shimmered in the steam, and then another, growing larger now, rising higher. As if in response, the toad well groaned. This was the moment. Hutch took charge. "Quick, let's pour it down the well." Together, using bits of towel and drop cloth to protect from the heat, the four of them hoisted the cauldron and poured its steaming contents straight down into the well of toads. Instantaneously from its depths, the well wheezed and heaved and sputtered. They jumped back, avoiding the spray of noxious fumes and more than a little afraid that they may have only angered the beast. The girls looked at one another for assurance, for some sense of what to do next. Wordlessly, the four joined hands around the death-dark, sputtering well, and they began to chant. "Sibylant Sisters, fire ant magic." It was as natural as a game, and yet... "Sibylant Sisters, oracle magic." The four swayed and stomped. "Sibylant Sisters, flower power magic." At first faltering, they picked up confidence as they incanted. "Sibylant Sisters, fuck you magic." Hutch flipped two birds at the well. The girls laughed and cheered and called out every silliness and every power that came into their minds. "Sibylant Sisters, granny witch magic. Sibylant Sisters, rainbow glitter cloud magic." Lena and Ten joined in with full-throated howls. Sibylant Sisters, listen! Caelum stomped for emphasis. To me! Stomp, stomp. Magic! The cacophony went round and round. Sibylant Sisters, don't give up magic. Sibylant Sisters, heal your line magic. Sibylant Sisters. And me, I was there too, for just a moment, like a breeze whispering over the backs of their ears, and I said, Sibylant Sisters, I forgive you, magic. I can't say for sure whether little Caelum heard me, but she paused mid-chant, and that was enough for me. And then that ground heaved one last time. The girls paused, breath held as the well panted and coughed and let out a whine so high and piteous it could only be a lament thrown against this sudden reversal of its fate. And then quiet. Seconds passed, and the girls stood stock still, not yet daring to breathe, let alone wish. But then, greenly, flickering and unsteady as a firefly, a single stream emerged from the darkness. It was followed, shyly at first, by an indigo blue as deep as a dream foretold, and then it was rushed after by the ruddy orange of laughter that refuses ever to be silenced, which was itself being chased by a red so adamant that the lack of light down that well gave way at the mere sight of it, till out came rushing a river of steam, a rainbow unfurling, which flowed up and over and into the gray house. It flowed and filled up that tired old house like a glittering basin of light. And that rainbow steam cleared the gray air from the gray house that night, didn't it? In its wake, it left a cornucopia. Shimmering pockets of rainbow cloud clung here and there like wisteria vines. On every surface the eye could see, prismatic dewdrops scattered moonlight and reflected the winking night stars. Flowers bloomed and pearlescent crystal facets shone silky soft and new. Caelum and Terra, Hutch and Belle, ran through and explored the house in fearless delight. They traced their hands over the shimmering surfaces with wonder as the melody of the music box drifted on the sweet October air. Chapter 51. Here they were, these girls, lying in the grass in a circle, their heads nearly touching, their hair fanned out around them, each decorated with flowers and wispy bits of rainbow steam. They chattered happily and pointed at a moonbow that had appeared around the full moon overhead, guessing that it must be a blessing just for them. Number 10 trotted over stinking like a skunk fight and snuggled down next to Caelum. Halloween night was over. Caelum would be 8 soon. She wasn't any closer to passing the 2nd grade than she'd been the week before, and yet so much had changed. She'd learned to follow the clues in the world around her. She'd learned that her dreams and intuitions had some wild tales to tell, and that lots of them were truer than anything she could have learned at school. She'd risked connecting to a lineage so full of pain and madness, she'd thought it would split her apart if she dared to let its light flow through her. But in the end, its magic had been the very thing that had saved her. One day, Katarina would come home too, not as the wee witch of legend, but as a fragile woman trying once again to be a mother. Caelum and Terra would grow up and, for a time, forget that any of this had ever happened. But tonight, the Sibylant Sisters slept out under a night sky and dreamed that the stars fell softly on them like rain. And from inside the bright white eternity of that starlight's still and silent center, there was no room for any doubt that they were here and they were whole and that they'd found their own magic. The end.